Hello everyone, welcome back to Voice Essentials, our live show that we do every week. I'm your host, Dr. Dan. I was thinking about saying that at the beginning of the show. I'm your host. That's hilarious. Okay, so I'll stop laughing at my own dad jokes. Welcome. I hope you're all having a great, safe time wherever you are in the world. It is 1 p.m. here in Australia, Brisbane, and I've had a good weekend. I spent Saturday with my local church we have a big garage sale twice a year, and we just look to help the community, and half the proceeds always go to a community group. In this case, it was for the homeless, and so that was tremendous that we were able to do that. And then yesterday I had the great privilege of celebrating my daughter's 20th birthday. Yes, I am that old. Deary me, how time is flying. She had a wonderful day, and it was good to be able to celebrate that with her. In fact, we celebrated it a day late because of a whole range of different things. For those of you who don't know, Caitlin, my eldest, she was born on September 11, on the day the two towers came down, and so our world was going to drastically change regardless. But of course that date has significance for us, like it does for the rest of the world, but has a slightly different significance given that our eldest was born on that day. But anywho, so we were able to do that. I hope whatever you've been doing this past weekend, that you've been able to garner some rest and some respite, or if you've had to be working, or it'd be good if you've been able to work, because that means you're gainfully employed, and hopefully that's a really positive thing for you. Today we are just going to be doing a usual Q&A. As you know, those of you who watch the show regularly, we have regular guests on. Wasn't our guest last week Elizabeth Benson, Dr. Elizabeth Benson, just fabulous? If you missed last week's show, I really encourage you to go back and have a watch. She was able to give us so many tremendous insights into the differences between the three worlds of voice instruction: classical, contemporary, music theatre, and beyond. We really, delved into that. So encourage you to have a watch of that if that is something that you think you might be interested in. I want to just give a shout out to Alyssa. I met Alyssa only a couple of hours ago. Alyssa is someone that joins us here in the channel and watches. Alyssa may well be already in the live chat right now. And a couple of weeks ago, she reached out to start some singing lessons, and so I met her. It's always a great thrill for me to meet in person and to do in-person lessons with community members, with people who are engaged with the Voice Essentials community. If you want to engage more readily in the wider community of Voice Essentials, you can do that by subscribing to or joining the Facebook group. If you go to Facebook and just type in Voice Essentials Community Group, it will come up, and you'll be able to join there. All you've got to do is accept the group rules, and in you jump. We've got, I think, last time I looked, there's about 1,100, 1,200 people. It might be a few more than that now, who are a part of that, tight-knit, supportive, encouraging group, and so that's where we all hang out, and if you'd like to engage more readily, you can certainly do that. Of course, so good to see so many of you already, and the live chat these days just goes off. That is where you need to leave your questions. Can I tell you, for today's show, we already have 7 questions. So remember that if you do absolutely need your question answered, it's really important that you send in a super chat. All the proceeds from the super chat gets fed back into the community, back into Voice Essentials and the development of new materials. And this is where I get to just segue to a little bit of a teaser. I am, and I don't think I've mentioned it to date. Maybe I did. I don't know. I think this might be the first time I've ever told you that I am about to start designing a new course. Now, as you know, we have Voice Essentials 1, Voice Essentials 2, and Voice Essentials 3 online courses, and you can get to those via the text rolling across the bottom of your screen right now. That's the website. And so I'm not actually going to be adding to that. What I'm actually going to design is a prequel, something that would go before Voice Essentials 1. I've received some feedback from a small group. It's not a massive group. For most people, starting at Voice Essentials 1 is absolutely what you need to do. And if you haven't already started, seriously, you will get so much out of running the course and engaging with it. And I know so many people who are in the live chat right now have already done the course or are currently doing the course, just like Alyssa is, who I met a couple of hours ago for a private singing lesson. But there are some people who may not have had any exposure to any music or had any experiences during their formative years around singing. And so, you know, these people have questions like, well, what is a note, and what am I supposed to sing, and how am I, you know, the rudimentary questions, really valuable questions of vocal health, and how do I care for my voice, and what is the voice, and how does it all work, and so what I'm about to do is start creating what I think will be a 5 to 6 module course where you will be able to go through and learn a whole range of fundamentals that sort of precede the commencement of Voice Essentials 1. And so if you're one of those people who has put your hand up and said, I've looked at Voice Essentials 1, but I'm not quite confident that I'm going to start that correctly, or I don't feel ready to take that step, this course is going to be for you. That's all I'm going to say about it, because like I said, I'm about to start creating it. That'll be something for next term for me, a big job for next term. And I've already spent the last number of weeks getting myself ahead with our pre-record video schedule here at Voice Essentials, so that I can now dedicate some time to the development of this new course, which I'm still, what do you reckon I should call it? I'd be interested to see your comments. Anyway, it's not going to be, because we've already got Voice Essentials 1, so we can't go Voice Essentials, I don't know. Anyway, I've got to think about it. Keen to hear what you think we might be able to do in that regard. Kate McKenzie, I saw earlier that your nephew was born. Congratulations to your sister and family. That's wonderful. Good to see Evo back in. Now, another student I've wanted to say hello to, I keep missing saying hello to Mr. Fomiati. He's actually a local Brisbaneite. He comes in for his singing lessons every second Tuesday. And so, Dom, Mr. Fomiati, good to see you, and wanted to give you a shout out today, because for the last number of, I don't know how many weeks, you're an active member in the chat, and I just haven't got around to acknowledging that you're there. I acknowledge all of you. You know, we have, you know, every week we have anywhere between 500 to 1,000 people watch this show. Most of you are watching it as a replay. And I hope that today's question and answer is going to be helpful. very quickly, because we're about to get into it, very quickly, next week there is no show because I will be on some annual leave. Then we're back for a Q&A. So in 2 weeks' time, we're back for another Q&A. So don't miss that. Remember, subscribe, hit the white bell icon, and that way you won't miss a show. Then we'll be having another Monday off, because, well, it's my Monday, for most of you it's Sunday. Another Monday off because it's a public holiday here in Brisbane, Australia. And then we'll be back again a fortnight after that, a week after the break for another hangout, and we'll do another Q&A at that time. And then, I'm about to start reaching out to some special guests, because as you know, we have the most fabulous guests on this show. So many people of such high caliber who just give their time free of charge to serve you, to serve us as a community. And I just count it a great privilege to be able to interview these people who come on our show, because, some of them are just really heavy hitters in the world of voice teaching. And so to be able to connect with them, to be able to bring them to you is a wonderful privilege. But enough said. Let's where am I? I've got to hit all the right buttons. You know that if I get distracted, I hit the wrong buttons, but I don't think I've hit the wrong button this time. Okay, so I think we're good. And I'm just looking over Linda to check that our sound and everything's going well. I think it is. For those of you who don't know, Linda, the amazing Linda, takes all of our questions in the live chat, throws them into a document, which I'm reading down the side here. And so if you've got a question, put it in the live chat. We're already up to 11 questions. So I can guesstimate. It's an educated guess based on previous experience. We are unlikely to get through all 11 questions. Therefore, from this point on, if you absolutely need your question answered today, then a super chat is the way to get that answered, because we prioritize the super chats, as you might expect. Pallavi, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Namaste, sir. Namaste. Can you please tell me how to sing high notes? That is a good question. And in fact, it was a similar question to what Alyssa brought to her lesson today earlier, when I met Alyssa. And Alyssa had been experiencing some voice strain, some vocal fatigue. And it was in part because Alyssa had been singing a little bit too high into the exercises, and that's a very normal approach. And so we talked through that, and hopefully we've been able to remedy that for her. But this is not uncommon, and the reason it's not uncommon is because we have this insatiable desire as singers to sing higher, to sort of, penetrate the stratosphere and, take the voice beyond what feels comfortable or is even sounding even half reasonable. And so singing high is often this holy grail. As I answer your question today, Pallavi, singing high is not the holy grail of good singing. Efficient, sustainable, clear communication with the voice is actually our aim. As I say here all the time, singing is not about perfect notes. Singing is about communication. It's about being able to deliver the narrative, the message that you are wanting to bring to people. And so it's really important that you facilitate into your voice, that you develop and workshop a stable mechanism, a mechanism that is free from tension. And that's often the kicker, is that the thing that is the nemesis of singing higher is more often than not tension born out of too much air pressure. And then, of course, we have to then account for what volume are we singing at, and what texture is the voice trying to deliver and express when the voice is sitting at that height or at those higher notes. And it's a funny thing, we always, within a song, we'll often find ourselves focusing all of our attention on that singular high note. And in fact, that's not really what it should be about. What you want to do is focus your attention on the preceding notes, the penultimate notes, those notes that immediately precede that single moment, or those couple of notes that you feel like you've got to reach. And it's an example I've given often here on the channel, is it's very much like a pole vaulter running up and leaping over the bar, or even a high jumper. I watched quite a bit of high jumping in the recent Olympics because one of the women high jumpers who ended up, I think, getting silver was an Aussie, and so the family and I ended up watching her win that. And it's interesting to watch their run up. In fact, there was a couple of ladies that we watched that in their run up they actually stopped and then had to go back and do it. Why did they do that? It's because they knew instinctively that the run up had not been as efficient as it needed to be in order to clear the bar. And so what they do, they back up and they go again. Now, in singing a song in live performance, it is unlikely that you get a chance to back up and rerun it. But certainly in practice, you can. And so it's a matter of you learning to make sure that those run-up, those lead-up notes are free. And so whenever I'm working with a singer to develop their high note, it's the preceding notes that we will focus on to ensure that the run-up, the lead-up, is balanced and even, and that then the voice is not being tripped up by the construction of any particular vowels, or the formation of sound. So have a look at your preceding notes, Pallavi. Hopefully that is. I've just seen Linda's comment about the sound and everything today. The tech. Yes, it is Brillo pads. I don't even know what a Brillo pad is, Linda. You and your Hobartian comments. Okay. You can tell me what a Brillo pad is on Wednesday, I think. Evo, thanks for the super chat, Evo. Let's jump in here. Doc, give us your best clarification between falsetto and head voice and how they are conventionally used. Pretty please. Well, you don't need to put in your pretty please was by virtue of the super chat, so thank you, Evo. The difficulty that what you're asking me to do, Evo, is to in a very quick and concise way explain voice registration. The clarification is found in the use of terminology. Here on YouTube, more often than not, you are going to hear people refer to voice as dichotomous, as in head voice, chest voice, or I should say, yeah, well, let's leave it at that, head and chest. With head being high notes and chest voice being low notes and full notes. And often the head is really high. Where the challenge of that, and so this is language that has been around for a couple of centuries. The challenge of that in the modern vernacular is the voice is used in a far more diverse way now. The voice in a lot of singing, excuse me, allow me to have some water. The voice, excuse me. I had some biscuits before I started, and I'm paying for it. In the growing diversity of use and expression of the voice, to simply talk about the voice as high, low, kind of doesn't cut it anymore. Not to mention the fact that there is no voice-making mechanism in your chest and there's no voice-making mechanism in your head. And so we've had to explore new terminology. The problem is that a big ship turns slowly. And so the wider community has not yet fully taken on the use of new terms. The other challenge of that is you've still got very respected pedagogues still using the old terminology, and in fact you'll even hear me on the channel here use, for the ease of communication, use the terms head voice and chest voice, because I'm often responding to the person's communication level that they've communicated on. But then when we start to think about, well, okay, that's head voice, and head voice traditionally has been what we've used to describe just high notes. Well, then what is falsetto? Is falsetto just like really, really, really high head voice? Or is it different? So this is where we start to get into the use of different models of registration. Now, for those of you who don't know, I apply in my studio the use of a model called the Thurman and Welch model of registration. And it comes from a book called Body, Mind and Voice. It was issued back in, published back in 2000. And I find it a very helpful way to describe and explain both mechanically and acoustically what is happening to the voice as it sings across its full range, low to top. But that's not to say that it is the only model, or the fact that it's even the right model and everyone else's model is wrong. It's just that that's what I teach my students, and in teaching that to my students, that is the language then that we then start to use in the studio. And Eva, you've thrown in another comment about, is falsetto more breathy? Weak falsetto may prove to be breathier than head voice, but equally a well-formed falsetto won't necessarily be breathy. Falsetto, by virtue of its mechanical balance, the fact that it is what we refer to as lengthener dominant, that is cricothyroid dominant, falsetto is cricothyroid only. We've got a passive disconnection with the shortener activity. It won't necessarily simply be breathy, but it will always be lighter than necessarily what head voice will be, because head voice in the Thurman and Welch model we refer to as upper register, and chest voice we refer to as lower register. But then we apply the dominant sort of activity to that as well, whether it's shortener or lengthener. And so often, Evo, when people start out developing their falsetto, it often will be rather breathy. Now, in my voice, what I find is that because I don't activate and use my falsetto as much as I should, because I'm able, by virtue of my voice type, being a true tenor, being able to take it in full voice right up into the range of what for most people would be falsetto, I don't find myself balancing, and that's what this all is. It's all mechanical balance. I don't find myself balancing for falsetto very often. Therefore, more often than not, my falsetto comes off as what I hear is a rather undeveloped falsetto, and it will often come off out as sounding quite breathy. Now, all of that being said, I find that in male singers in particular, I'm often jealous of baritones and their falsetto, because I find that baritones are more able to develop a really beautiful falsetto and to use it very effectively. So you asked me to be to express how they're conventionally used, Evo. I hope that's answered your question. It's actually very hard to give a concise synopsis of voice registration, because the moment you start to try and simplify something, and this is the case with everything in life, isn't it, that you often can simplify it to the point of error, and it can be quite challenging. Certainly within the Voice Essentials courses, we do look at voice registration, and I do have a lengthy video on YouTube about the subject, and that's certainly worth having a look at again, Evo, if you've still got questions. But always appreciate your question, as I appreciate Ashley. Gee, I've got a lot of my students watching today. Ashley, hello. I hope your knee is feeling better after the surgery, and that's what your question is regarding. How long should you wait before you start to bend, or can you do the warm-ups without the bend? Ashley, it's really important that you listen to your surgeon about how when you can start to load your knee joint post-surgery. I suspect you're going to be doing some physiotherapy as a part of your post-op recovery. If not, I'd encourage you to talk to your surgeon about connecting with the right physio to start strengthening the knee after your surgery. And it will be your surgeon and your physio who will direct your recovery and when you can start loading that joint, which would include things like bending as a part of the lessons. You can do the warm-ups and your exercises, remembering that they're two different things. You can do that as a part of your without the bending, and I've had many students over the years who've come into studio with a broken ankle or whatever. I've had older students who really struggle to bend just because of their age, and so I typically then manage the model and facilitate access to the level of support, remembering that the bending within our exercises is all about activating the entire instrument to manage tension, and so that's what I would be encouraging you to do, Ashley. Talk to your surgeon and or your physio. Mackenzie Kate, is it essential to see a laryngologist? I'm seeing a pediatric ENT that has dealt with a lot of voice disorders. This is a really good question. You may recall, Mackenzie, from a show we did earlier in the year with one of my laryngologist friends from Sydney, Dr. Georgina Harris. If not, certainly go looking for that show that we did earlier in the year. Georgina is a laryngologist. That is, she is working, her fellowship, her doctor fellowship is specifically in laryngology. An ear, nose and throat doctor, otherwise known as an otolaryngologist, is a specialist who specializes in ears, noses, and throats. Throat, including the subsection of voice. A laryngologist is only working on the throat. Sorry, the larynx. Now, often a laryngologist will also be a qualified otolaryngologist. In fact, I think the pathway depends on your country. The pathway may, in fact, be ENT with a subspecialty of laryngology. I'm not sure of that. But the point being is the specialty of laryngology is a relatively recent development. For example, the last I checked, in Australia, we only have 8 laryngologists nationwide. And that's because it's such a new subspecialty within otolaryngology. And so that's something to be mindful of. As to your specific question, Mackenzie, the benefits of seeing a laryngologist are that they are working with singers a lot. An ear, nose, and throat doctor is often not seeing a lot of singer-specific issues. That's not to say they don't work with singers or don't work with the larynx, because they do, but by virtue of simply the caseload of singers and voice professionals that a laryngologist sees, they develop more refined techniques, and they're often their surgeries, as in their rooms, are often equipped with far more specialized equipment. And now this is not always the case, and this is why I'm not going to say to you, you have to only see a laryngologist, Mackenzie, because in your area, firstly, you may not have any, and secondly, you may find that the pediatric ENT that you're about to see may well be adequate to what you are requiring by virtue of perhaps they've been practicing for 30 years, and just that alone sets them up to be excellent physicians. So I would just go in, and have your appointment and see how it goes, would be my encouragement. Wicco, I have entered the whistle register before. I haven't entered it for months because I didn't train it. Will I be able to get back into train it now? I'm 14 years. My Wicco, I'm not going to say don't play in the space of your whistle register. However, given your age, and I'm not fully, I can't remember your biological gender, so please forgive me. But it's when the voice is going through maturation biologically, it is important that we don't overstress the mechanism. Now, I don't want you to mishear that in me saying that you shouldn't sing, or that you shouldn't be using the voice or anything like that. But I am a great believer in us being, that we treat the voice very carefully as it's going through its maturation process of puberty. And so that's something that I would be encouraging you to just be mindful of, because when it comes to whistle register, firstly, I would want to know that you actually were accessing whistle register prior to, in recent times, as you said, because it may not be whistle register. Sometimes people misinterpret what whistle register is as actually being head voice, chest, or falsetto. And so I would need to hear that to be able to confidently communicate with you, I think. but by virtue of your age, my one, before I move on, my one comment to you is be careful. Proceed with caution. Coming down to excuse me. There's those bickies again. A little bit of water. I think it's also, we've got a little bit of wattle starting to flower locally, and it's starting to get at my allergies a little as well. So a little bit of postnasal drip. Too much information. Okay, so Nivagi, I recently found the channel and I haven't actually started any course, so where do you suggest I start? I have some experience in playing the piano. Will that be useful in learning to sing? So yes, I'll answer it backwards. Yes, having some piano skills will be helpful. However, you don't need piano skills at all to do the Voice Essentials courses, simply because I provide all of the exercise tracks. They're universally developed. They're all there for you. In fact, because Alyssa gave me, I've been talking about Alyssa today, Alyssa gave me some just fabulous feedback about the course. Just one little point she made, and that is there was no instruction within the course to tell you how high you should sing within, when using the universal exercise tracks. Alyssa, I can tell you, I've already put in a couple of paragraphs at the beginning of every course just to let people know what they should and shouldn't do and how high is too high. Alyssa, thank you for that feedback. So valuable, and I've already implemented an edit to that. So anyway, back to Sam's question. So yes, you can engage. Given that you haven't participated in any of the Voice Essentials courses before, I'd encourage you to start at Voice Essentials 1. Now, you can actually get Voice Essentials 1 as a part of the Pro bundle, which gives you 1, 2, and 3 at a significantly reduced price, or you can just start at Voice Essentials 1 and then purchase the other courses thereafter. So I can say to you, so many people have been advantaged by doing this course, and I'm often very humbled by the feedback. So hopefully you will get the same sort of results that others have been experiencing. And welcome to Voice Essentials, and hope to see your name pop up in the chat more often as we move forward. Keenan. Hi, my name is Keenan. Hi, Keenan. I wanted to know, how do you sing in mixed voice? And so this sort of harkens back to the discussion we we're just having about registration. So often it's miscommunicated that mixed voice is a separate register. Mixed voice is not a separate register per se within the voice. It is simply the manner in which you balance the musculature of lower to upper register, and how you balance the shortener and lengthener weighting. And again, the comments that I'm making earlier about the video that I've got on the channel, if you go looking voice, I think the video is called head, chest, and mixed voice. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, jump across the channel, hit the videos tab, and just search for, I'm pretty sure it starts with head, like the name of the video. So go and check that out, Keenan. I think that'll get you going. Hector Madrigal. Hi, my friend. Hi, Hector. Big fan. Oh, I'm pleased that you are. I find out I can't no longer sing in my head voice. My vocal folds just close up, and after a while of practice, I find it, but it's way too raspy and it feels just bad. Advice, please. I have no injuries on my vocal folds. I'm glad to hear that. Look, I think you'll find that comes back to the word I've been using a bit today, as you may have cottoned on to, is the word balance. And getting the muscular balance right when it comes to voice is so important. And we're getting not only the muscular balance, but the way we apply air between the vocal folds and the pressurization of that air, all of that has to be in balance. And so when it comes to singing in head voice, it may well be that the balance is a little bit, tripped up a little bit. And Hector, you too might be advantaged by going and having a look at that video, or enrolling in Voice Essentials 1, because we kind of do ultimately towards the end of that course go through registration and start to develop that area of the voice. I am going to do 2 more questions because we need to finish up, and because I've got a student arriving here in 20 minutes. So I'm going to do 2 more questions. That being said, if you absolutely need your question answered today, please throw in a super chat and I will prioritize your question. Otherwise, Titus Lee is going to have his question, or their question, answered. How to increase your range. In fact, I've got a new video coming out. No, an older video, as in it went live 3, 4, 6 weeks ago. I can't remember. Very recently. Titus, I encourage you to go and watch that video, because that video will give you a far more in-depth explanation that will answer your question than I can do very quickly in a couple of minutes. Please go and check the video out on the channel. Ashi. Last question for Ashi. Do you know what? Remember at the beginning today, I said we would not get through 11 questions? We got through 11 questions. That being said, there's another 10 questions there after that. So again, it really does point back to the super chat. No, do not put a super chat in now, because I'm going to answer Ashi's question after I have some water. Hey, it's been more than 1 month my voice wasn't health. I was on rest and medicines. Last Thursday I went to another 4 ENT doctor. He said I have muscle tension dysphonia, so how long should I rest now? This is a complex question, actually, Ashi. Muscle tension dysphonia is an umbrella, sort of one-size-fits-all diagnosis. I'm not saying the diagnosis is incorrect by any stretch. It's just that we use the term muscle tension MTD, muscle tension dysphonia, to kind of label a whole range of different things. And so, one person's experience of MTD is not another person's experience of it. The causes may be different. And so with muscle tension dysphonia, the best first course of option to actually do first is to actually go and see a speech pathologist. And it's once you've spent time with a speechy that then, in my case, I would then be keen to then see you move into working with someone like myself, a singing voice specialist, who has experience with working with people who have ongoing muscle tension dysphonia. There's a reason why I said it like that. That is ongoing muscle tension dysphonia, is because typically MTD does not simply resolve with a few easy sessions. Typically, we are learning to manage the muscle tension dysphonia, and sometimes it will resolve over time. For others, it unfortunately, and again, this is where it really depends on what is the root cause of the MTD. Sometimes that the muscle tension dysphonia can get worse, and sometimes it can simply be, it can be maintained. Now that's where it is currently, and how, and so learning to manage the voice within sort of new normal parameters is often a big part of the journey of those experiencing muscle tension dysphonia. In the best case scenarios, again, recognizing that MTD is a sort of a coverall term, often it's just a supraglottic or like the voice is under too much load. It's just purely tension that is easily overcome, easily learnt to be managed by altering how the voice user is using their mechanism and applying their voice. But you will discover that firstly by spending time with a speech pathologist, and then secondly, taking that into the studio with a qualified singing teacher. I would be reticent to just place your voice into the hands and care of just anyone because you have been diagnosed with MTD. You do want an experienced, qualified singing teacher as a part of that team, and not just someone who's going to stand with you and sing songs. You need to technically work the voice in order to get the best results, and importantly, to not exacerbate the tension. That's really important. So, Ashi, I hope that's helpful. Which brings us, believe it or not, to the end of another show. And it's been so cool to hang out with all of you and spend what has been the last 50 minutes hanging out. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Please leave today's video a thumbs up just to let me know that you're appreciating the content that we cover by virtue of your questions. It's completely directed by you in the community, and hopefully you're getting something out of it. In fact, I'm pretty confident you all are, because you all keep fronting up every week. Remember, next week we do not have a show. I'm taking some annual leave, some much needed annual leave, and keen to do that. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. We'll do another Q&A. For those of you, sorry that we didn't get to everyone's questions. I'm looking through here, and yeah, we just don't get to them all. And I try to get through as many as we can. But anyway, so bring your questions again in a couple of weeks' time, when we'll hang out and spend some time together. But of course, as you'll always hear me say, I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.